It is 6:03, calling the meeting of April 12th, Wednesday Planning Commission meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and Statement of Values. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary Bhatnagar, if you could please read the Statement of Values, and audience, please remain standing.
Let me mute myself here. I'll do that in a minute. The Statement of Values. As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you, Secretary. Please have a seat. Right, we will begin with roll call. Elizabeth?
Sure. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Aye.
Commissioner Biagini? Present. Chair Kuru?
Here.
Commissioner Wang?
Here.
Commissioner Bouza has notified us he is absent tonight. Commissioner Saleem?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to excuse Commissioner Bouza this evening?
Motion to excuse Commissioner Bouza?
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, the motion was made by Commissioner Biagini?
Seconded by Commissioner Saleem.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Commissioner Biagini?
Yes.
Chair Kuru?
Aye.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Saleem?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a quorum for tonight's meeting. Secretary Bhatnagar, please read the Declaration of Commission Procedures.
Thank you, Chair. The Declaration of Commission Procedures. Public hearings are conducted by the Chair in accordance with the following procedures. The Chair of the Commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the Commission. Any item on this agenda may be continued at a subsequent hearing. Applicants will be allotted up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals. Following staff presentation of the item, other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes. The applicant is allotted up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of comments. No additional comments will be accepted upon the close of the public hearing, although the Commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Special procedures, time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the Chair. Appeal of Commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days. Those are the procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on the Friday afternoon preceding the meeting and available online. We move to the next order of today. Continuances and exceptions. This part of the meeting allows for applicants, members of the public, or other interested parties to request an item to be 1, continued without hearing, 2, withdrawn, or 3, taken out of order. Are there any requests from applicants, public, or the commission for a continuance or exception for any of the items on tonight's agenda? And I do see that we have one request from staff. I will read the item that is being requested by staff for a continuance, but we will open, are we opening public hearing today and closing?
And closing it, correct.
Okay. The continuous item is to request on a rezone to plan development for the first and second story addition at 1485 Bellamy Street.
You probably need to read about the reduced size of the meeting and exceptions being, or continuances being possible for having only 5 of the normal 7.
So we do have a quorum.
Yeah, I know, but there's the
If anybody wanted to,
Which one? I just did. I did. Yeah, I did. I just did. Yes. Okay. So do we have a motion for the request from staff to requesting the continuance?
so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wang. We have a motion and a second approving the continuance, meaning we will, is it to a date certain, staff?
Yes, it's to May 24th.
Okay, so we will put that on the record that we have opened public hearing and closed it.
No, continued it.
To the chair.
Yes,
may
Senator.
may I speak briefly? This is the opening of the public hearing for 1485 Bellamy Street.
Okay.
If there is any member of the public, either in person or on Zoom, who wishes to speak on this item, who cannot attend the May 24th meeting, then we should allow them to speak at this time.
Got it. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Xander. That's clearer. Do we have any members of the public, either in-house or online, who would like to speak to that item or who are here present to speak to that item?
No, we do not. There are no requests.
And then, sorry, Chair, the action now is to simply vote to continue the item. We are actually not closing the public hearing. We're
Got it.
leaving it open.
Got it. Okay. So we are now going to continue this item to be heard date certain, May 24th, 2023, Planning Commission meeting, and we'll continue the public hearing then.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
We have a second?
We did. Yes. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Commissioner Biagini?
Yes,
Chair Kuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Salam?
Yes.
Thank you.
And to the chair now, if I could take the liberty, I'll simply read the 5-person caution that I think Commissioner Salim was referring to earlier. The action of the Planning Commission takes a minimum of 4 votes, and there is only 5 commissioners present tonight. And so any person who has an item on the agenda has the discretion to request a continuance if they would prefer that the commission wait to hear their item until there's a full complement. So I think it's specifically directed towards the applicants for 2339 El Camino Real and 2341 El Camino Real, the expansion of on-site sale and consumption of beer and wine. If that applicant wishes to continue their item with no prejudice, they have the option of requesting that at this time.
Got it. That was right behind it. Thank you, Xander. So do we have any other requests, knowing that we are less than 7?
No, we do not. No hands raised on Zoom and no one in person requesting a continuance.
Okay. Seeing none, we will move to consent calendar items. Secretary Bhatnagar.
Thank you, Chair. The consent calendar. The procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted, approved, or adopted by one motion unless requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. If any member of the Planning Commission, staff, the applicant, or a member of the public wishes to comment on a consent calendar item or would like the item to be heard on a regular agenda, make this request now. Items listed on the consent calendar with associated file numbers constitute public hearing items. The consent calendar items are 1A and 1B. 1A is the Planning Commission meeting minutes of January the 11th, 2023 meeting. And item 1B, the action to allow the expansion of on-site sale and consumption of beer and wine, ABC license type 41, for a 2,800 square foot restaurant and bakery located at 2339 El Camino Real and 2341 El Camino Real, CEQA categorical exemption, Class 1, Section 15301, existing facilities.
Do we have a motion or any request to remove any items from the consent calendar from the commission members and/or members of public?
Then I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Seconded?
Thank you.
Commissioner Bhatnagar,
Aye.
Commissioner Biagini,
Yes?
Chair Kuru,
Yes?
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Saleem.
Yes.
Thank you. And the motion carries.
Thank you, and congratulations to the applicant who got their ABC license clearance. Okay. Okay, we move now to the other order of the day, public presentations. This is a section of the meeting where members of the public would like to address the commission on any item not on today's agenda. Note again that the commission has very limited ability to discuss items and can request to another agenda if agreed by all members of the commission. Do we have any members from public or online who would like to address this commission on any item not on this agenda for today?
No, we do not have any requests.
Okay, moving then to the regular public hearing for today. We have 2 items on public hearing. Item 2, action on the amendment of zoning code section 18.60.050 to permit fuel cells and photovoltaic panels as an allowable use without need for a use permit, as well as require other electric power plants to adhere to state of California emissions requirement in MP, which is planned industrial zoning, ML, light industrial zoning, MH, heavy industrial zoning, B, public, quasi-public, and public park or recreation, and last, PD, planned development zoning districts. Staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have Assistant Director Rena Brio here on Zoom this evening to give you a presentation on this item.
Hi, Rena.
Thank you, Chair Kuru, and members of the Planning Commission. I also wanted to introduce Kevin Kolnowski, who is our assistant. I think, tell me your title at SVP.
Electric Utility Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you. With SVP, he might add some value if there are some technical questions on this item, but I think we're going to be able to provide you enough information with the staff report. This particular item is a zoning code amendment, specifically to the zoning code section 18.60.50, which Chair Chirukuru mentioned. And for a little background, in our current zoning code, there is a definition of electric power plants. And it reads, electric power plants are defined in the zoning code as equipment, fixtures, and personal property operated or maintained in connection with the production of electricity using any source of thermal, steam, wind, or solar energy with a generating capacity of more than 500 kilowatt and less than 50 megawatts, including conduits, ducts, or other devices, materials, apparatus, or other property used for the transmission of electricity so produced. And I did realize as I was reading this really lengthy definition for you that I didn't have the PowerPoint up, which would make it much easier for you to follow along. So I'm just checking. Elizabeth, should I share my screen? and put the PowerPoint up that way?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you,
Rena,
Rena.
let
I
me
was
know.
almost trying to memorize everything you just said.
If you
What?
need
Was
me,
that a little difficult? Okay.
I was
so here
really
we go.
testing myself here.
please got it.
Here. Let me get the right view for everyone. Okay. Oops. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back. So, yeah, I mean, the highlights of what that definition of electric power plant includes. So today we are going to focus on two specific kinds of technology that meet the definition of electric power plant, specifically photovoltaics and fuel cells. And in our zoning code today, as Chair Chirukuru mentioned, those are allowed with a CUP, so permissibly, possibly allowed if you obtain a use permit, currently in these 4 zoning districts of planned industrial, light industrial, heavy industrial, and public quasi-public. And PVs and fuel cells with a larger capacity of generation actually meet this zoning code definition of electric power plant and thus require the need to obtain a CUP. So a little bit of background on entitlements for these types of applications. So the Planning Commission in 2022 actually approved a CUP for Santa Clara University. I believe you probably all recall that. And that particular array was going to generate about 1,388 kilowatts of power at Santa Clara University. And so they did go through the use permit process. For fuel cells, the Planning Commission hasn't seen any fuel cell use permit applications yet. However, there are 3 currently on file with the city. Three use permit applications for fuel cells, it is. And so first, let's talk about photovoltaics. So the proposed zoning code amendment would remove the need to obtain a use permit for PV panels, and PVs would thus be allowed by right. And when something is allowed by right, there would not be need for CEQA review. So this really aligns with state legislation, recognizing that the state has said that photovoltaic technology is a clean energy source and actually established a statutory exemption for solar projects so that they're just declared exempt. And that statutory exemption is what we utilized, for instance, when we brought forward that use permit that the Planning Commission took action on in September of 2022. For fuel cells, similarly, fuel cells are a technology that has a renewable component to it. And there is a proposal with the zoning code amendment to remove the need for a use permit for fuel cells. And by removing the use permit, the fuel cells would be considered by right, and therefore a use permit would not be required. So for some background on this, really, this is a part of a particular legal settlement that the city has entered into with Bloom. And really is the motivation for this particular change to the ordinance, which would satisfy a tentative settlement that's been reached between the city and Bloom. And the city council approved this tentative settlement on March 21st of 2023. So Bloom sued the city in 2019, challenging that the city's authority to require a conditional use permit and CEQA review for its fuel cell projects. They sued on those grounds. And under the tentative settlement of the lawsuit, Bloom would agree to utilize renewable energy sources and or offsets, and the city would agree to introduce an ordinance, specifically this ordinance, removing the use permit requirement for fuel cells. Bloom Energy would also provide ongoing reports to the city of evidence of fuel cells adhering to emission standards set forth in the agreement. If they fail to meet their targets, then they have to shut down these fuel cells. So this is an ongoing monitoring effort between with information being shared by Bloom to the city and the city monitoring that information. So similarly with the zoning code amendment to really align all other potential electric power plants, that they be required to not exceed the state of California emissions requirements. So emissions requirements could be met in whole or in part through renewable energy credits or offsets to meet the California Air Resources Board or CARB requirements. And a little more details on that. So the state of California emissions requirements, as we are defining in this zoning code ordinance or zoning code amendment, are specifically the ones set by the California Resources Portfolio Standard program. And so really these percentages really indicate the percentage of renewable energy, renewable fuel that is part of the portfolio for energy production. So if that would be 44% by December 31st of 2024, 52% by December 31st of 2027, 60% by December 31st of 2030, 90% December 31st, 2035, 95% by December 31st of 2040, and then 100% by December 31st of 2045. And, you know, we recognize that this is a, you know, possible target that might move. It might become more stringent through regulation or legislation. And if that is the case, then the more stringent requirements would be applicable. So these proposed zoning code amendments are consistent with our climate action plan that was adopted in 2022, as well as the city's general plan. So in our CAP, we have a target to achieve 80% reduction in emissions by 2035 and net carbon neutrality by 2045. And in our general plan, we state that we're going to be promoting the use of renewable energy resources. And so really, Bloom's fuel cells, by really committing to utilizing fuel, renewable fuel and offsets, they would be aligning with this target of being carbon neutral by 2045 and reaching the interim targets starting at 2025. And really by removing the need for a use permit for these, I would say, renewable energy offerings, that really we are facilitating the city's review process and streamlining people bringing on these technologies to the city. So when I was reading off the zoning districts, that the section of the zoning ordinance that refers to electric power plants, that omitted PD zoning districts, and several sites in the city that involve commercial and industrial activity are in PD zoning districts. So we are intentionally adding PD zoning districts as districts that this particular section of the code is applicable to. So before I move to the recommendation, I did want to point out that there is I think an ordinance, the ordinance that is attached to our report was printed for our planning commissioners, and just a couple words highlighted because they were changed since we posted the agenda and the attached ordinance. And so what I would just read is the area of change, which is just a few words that got added. So really it's subsection C of 18.60.050 is proposed to read, for the purposes of this section, fuel cells mean all equipment, fixtures, and personal property operated or maintained in connection and including, those are the two words added, and including, a direct energy conversion device that converts chemical energy into electrical energy or vice versa using an electrochemical reaction. So with that, I am going to read the recommendation before we take any questions, and that is for the Planning Commission to to recommend that the City Council adopt the proposed zoning code amendment 18.60.050 to permit fuel cells and photovoltaic panels as an allowable use without the need for a use permit, as well as require other electric power plants to adhere to the state of California emissions requirements in the MP, ML, MH, B, and PD zoning districts. So that concludes the staff report, and we are here to answer your questions. So thank you.
Okay, I'm sure we have a lot of questions. Commissioner Biagini.
Hi, Rena. Thank you for that presentation. I just want to make sure with all of the alphabet soup that I have a clear picture of what we're essentially doing. It sounds to me like basically we're bringing us up to date with the new technologies, and we're doing it in a way that can help expedite by virtue of making it by right instead of going through a permit process every time. So we're going to expedite our ability to bring us up to new tech stuff in a way that still meets the California emission requirements and keeps the city on target with going greener in the future. And is that basically what this is doing in a whole bunch of alphabet soup areas?
I think that's a good synopsis.
Okay.
And really related to fuel cells and photovoltaics, it's removing the need for a use permit.
Right.
One, because with photovoltaics, the state has already said that it's a proven technology, a renewable source.
Right.
And with fuel cells, the city is going to be agreeing to make sure that that technology is meeting appropriate standards for emissions. And then the third thing that we're doing with this ordinance is saying, and all other electric power plants, right? All other plants,
Got it.
whatever you may be, you also need to meet California emission standards.
Got
or
it.
you should meet these specific standards.
And for the time being, the check and balance that we have is with Bloom being in the batter's box. They get to report, and we get to kind of see how it plays out, that in fact it does meet California emission standards and the city targets for a greener planet. Yeah?
Specifically the standards that Bloom and the city has agreed on. Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, to clarify, Bloom is not meeting state emission standards. Bloom will be meeting a set of emission standards to which they have agreed to as part of their settlement agreement in this
Okay.
lawsuit. Basically, we're agreeing to streamline, they're agreeing to use renewable fuels, but not quite as much renewables as you see in the schedule for other kinds of power plants. We had to give a little bit as far as the percentages to reach settlement.
Well,
It'll be much more renewable than it is right now.
so it's a step forward towards green.
Yes.
Thank you.
My Miss Commissioner Salim, I was waiting for the hand to come up.
Well, I just wanted to give everybody else a chance. So by suspending the need for a use permit, are we having other permit process still in place, like structural integrity, fire safety, and all the other characteristics of any power generation facility within the city?
Yes, the city would still going through a building permit process, which does involve fire department review, structural review, all the other processes that isn't discretionary, but is a ministerial process. The fuel cells would still, and photovoltaics would still go through the need to obtain a building permit.
Okay, and since we have a SVP rep, I'd like to ask if there are any plans for excess power to be fed back into the grid, and if so, are we able to supply sufficient wiring support and transport?
Typically with the Bloom fuel cells that we have installed, they can export up to like a 0.5 megawatt in the systems that are designed for that. I know during the energy crisis, a couple of years where we had shortages, they tried to do more. They weren't able to, but there's devices in their protection devices. They can provide like up to 0.5 megawatt.
Okay. Well, I'll have some follow-ups, but I'll let others ask if they haven't.
Any other commissioners before I go? Commissioner Huang?
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, that converts chemical energy into electrical energy. what kind of chemical energy is that for the fuel cell? Hydrogen?
Methane.
It's a reaction through, they have a catalyst. They reform the methane. They create hydrogen, and the hydrogen with the palladium catalyst creates electricity in the fuel cell. I could not tell you exactly how it works, but in theory, there's no combustion. It's a chemical reaction to create the hydrogen, which makes the fuel cell work between the anode and the cathode.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I have a couple of questions. Rena, I think it was on your slide 6, don't have to bring it up. My question is that we are asking Bloom Energy to essentially self-monitor the emissions from their systems. We are all aware that Bloom Energy actually manufactures those systems, the fuel cell systems, right? And now that they will be using those fuel cells to provide their own energy needs, while that's a good goal, but allowing them to self-monitor the emissions. And by the way, there are emissions, right? So what comes out of the fuel cells, and that's a key thing to understand here, is I think moisture, as you just mentioned, hydrogen is separated out, and so H2O, moisture, and CO2, if I'm not mistaken. But it would be good to know what the emissions are. In any case, it seems a little bit like the fox guarding the hen house, don't you think?
It's actually that they submit to the city those reports. So it's not quite self-monitoring. It's them producing, they have to share their data with the city for the city to make sure that they're meeting the terms of the agreement.
In Rena, I believe that is, they have a certain GHG-free component that they have to make. So they have to use renewable gas or some component. That's what they have to provide to the city, is how much renewable gas are they using to meet the criteria that we have, because it is a GHG factor that we're monitoring. It's not the overall emissions.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, okay. So following this, the thought process here, right? The state has provided CEQA exemptions to photovoltaics, but not to other forms of energy production. And my thought is there's a good reason for that. And by getting into this agreement with Bloom Energy, are we setting a precedence here with also allowing their equipment to tell us, nope, we are not passing any emissions standards. We are all, doing well and staying under it, right? So just wondering whether that's a wise thing for us to do. I'm fully in support of all renewable energy projects. This seems like the producer is going to get us to be more renewable energy reliant by selling their own equipment, potentially to themselves, but maybe also getting some mileage out of this potential lawsuit that they made with the city. My underlying question is, did we make too many compromises with Bloom Energy in trying to get out of this lawsuit and settling here?
I would suggest that we compare this proposal to the current situation, which is that right now, if you install a fuel cell in the city of Santa Clara, it can be powered by methane, and there's no emission restriction. There are 3 applications pending that would be going forward with no limit on how much can be emitted. As you know, the city just adopted a REACH code in the last 2 years, expressing a strong desire to virtually eliminate the use of natural gas within the city. And here we would have fuel cells coming in that utilize natural gas with no limitation on how much they can put into the atmosphere. Methane is something like 80 times more, has a 80 times higher warming effect on the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. It's one of the most potent greenhouse gases. And the problem we have here is that there's no limitation on how much they can use. So what they're committing to in this settlement agreement is to go carbon neutral by 2045, zero emissions, and to go on a schedule between now and then so that they will use either renewable fuels or purchase offsets in a gradually increasing percentage so that we will get a much lower degree of emissions than we would otherwise and eventually get to carbon neutrality. So compared to existing conditions, I would propose that this is far superior than the situation we're in. It will help us achieve our goals of eliminating the use of methane in the city gradually.
Yeah, okay, understood. I would imagine there would be EPA regulations for any energy production or any other type of equipment. But in any case, if we are going a little bit further and providing a schedule, that's great. So the reason for my question, so I was part of a smart windows company, and we evaluated the efficiency of smart windows in adjacent rooms compared to normal windows. Guess what the data showed? Smart windows were smarter. And I was part of that company. I'm not saying that they fudged the data. I looked at the data and it looked reasonable to me. Everybody else thought it was reasonable. I never inquired what's under the surface and so on. But that's my question regarding the fox guarding the hen house, right? I mean, if it's their equipment telling you this is what we're doing, it's not that great of a problem to solve when you want to stay under certain limits, right? And again, without going into too much detail, we should trust our people that we deal with, and I'm okay with that if that's what your decision is.
But I believe we're measuring. Kevin can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we're measuring on the front end. How much renewable fuel are they using in their mix?
Xander, I believe that's correct, but the settlement's not approved yet, so I know we're not supposed to talk about that, but I know it's moving in that direction where it's comparable or better than what all the other power plants have to do. So it is that they have to meet the RPS standard that has been put out by the state. So they have to certify that, and there's mechanisms for that certification to take place. It's not just Bloom providing us data, it's data that has to be validated and verified. But I think that's part of the settlement agreement.
All right, thank you. I'll stop here. Thank you, Chair.
Good questions. Do we have any other questions before I go? I'm sure. Commissioner Salim.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. So the follow-up question I had, is there any currently undiscovered expense in the form of possible upgrades to substations or additional fire safety that might be included by removing these limitations? Basically, are we buying into a future expense? And I'm not against this in any way. I'm just curious, is the city making sure that it's got all of the expected costs covered?
Yeah. From SVP standpoint, there's not, because they're not increasing the load that the city has to bring in. So there's no increased expense.
Right, but that's where I was asking if they're going to feed back into the grid, because if they're providing power, it may actually affect the need for additional upgrades to the substations and things.
Yeah, and I know that the past devices have been up to 0.5 megawatt, and I don't believe that's going to be any different for these because of the protection of our equipment.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, I have a few questions, and I share sentiments that Commissioner Bhatnagar meant. In fact, I had exactly that same analogy of the fox guarding the horses, the chicken coop. So as a person who has understood the value of CEQA, this is, for me, a slippery slope, as I'm sure many people are also tracking to it. CEQA did not just look at what the renewable part of it was. There is a whole series of aesthetics, biological, endangered species, greenhouse gas emissions being part of it, cultural resources, soil, hydrology, noise, impact to public services, and tribal cultural resources. How are we going to mitigate, especially when it's a free fall, a non-discretionary permit for all of those additional, especially for large swaths of land being, this is not like in high urban settings, it could go anywhere, we do have many significant, I would say, cultural resources and biological resources, and of course, not knowing what kind of true alternate renewable energy this is going to use, they could purchase offsets. So there's many layers. And to earlier Xander's point, slight caveat is we would have reviewed all of those methane emissions under CEQA with the use permit as a discretionary approval. So it would have still come to us with a report made by our city staff or a delegate to understand what were the true impacts to the environment. However, here, as the analogy goes, they're asked to submit a report that they provide. We are not technically savvy yet, I would think, to understand all of the nuances, as we are also acknowledging what the fuel cell is going to be. As rightfully pointed, the state has only granted for PV. Fuel cells are at this time on natural gas, and methane is a byproduct, okay, and carbon. They have not committed yet as to what the alternate is. It's a work in progress, as I understand, but it looks like we already showed our cards in that we will release it. And it's not just for Bloom Energy. We are giving a blanket approval of sorts to anybody with the opportunity to sue and get away with lots of other things. So I commend Bloom Energy for bringing an awareness that there are other sources or competing sources of energy, rightfully so. We all had PG&E outages that we all were like, okay, is electricity true solution to it all? Moments. And here we have a competitor to SVP directly asking for a blanket approval without any feedback or land use discretion. So those are my high level, and I'm more than happy to go into any level of details. But how are we mitigating? We'll start there. How are we mitigating for biological, cultural resources, tribal cultural, and geological and water quality?
So what I would say, and I will probably look for some support from Xander and maybe Kevin a bit on this, but what I would say is, and I think the way that Xander framed this original discussion, looking at the current context and the fact that we're actually working to improve the environmental outcome by having certain standards for renewables that are going to be part of the process in which they weren't before. And although they would have before gone through a CEQA process, they would have really not been as beneficial from all the goals that we have as a city. And so the city has, in its discretion, the ability to determine what is a discretionary process. The state says once you decide something's discretionary, you have to go through a CEQA process. For instance, if we decided that a 6-foot fence needs a use permit, we'd be going through, I mean, of course, there's an exemption for that. But the point is that really the city has the ability to determine what is discretionary and not discretionary. And in the city, and really evaluating this proposal, looked at a variety of different inputs to understand that it was a good place to land, if you will, to remove a use permit for a other benefit from a energy standpoint and emissions.
I don't agree at
So-
all.
So, but I really actually, that's just how I would explain it. I don't know if Xander or Kevin, and once again, this is part of a legal settlement. So there are things that I think aren't completely able to be discussed, but I'll let.
Xander?
Well, I think you're right in recognizing that there's a bit of a trade-off, because we will not be doing the detailed analysis that we would do if we had to do an MND or EIR every time. I think part of the judgment call is the fact that these fuel cells are relatively small, don't go deep into the ground. There's
Today,
today,
but you're giving a blanket cover. You don't know technology. You don't know how big, how massive, how far. So penny wise, pound foolish seems to be the analogy right now for me. I mean, I get it. It's part of settlement. Your hands are tied, and I don't take it. We are being members of public who would give their perception to what is openly just a litigation and a settlement that we are conceding because this is their second lawsuit. I know counsel has been very vocal about why we did not allow Bloom Energy to have their first even lawsuit against, or first without going through use permit, because Santa Clara has been at the forefront of leading renewable energy sources, with Silicon Valley Power being way ahead of many, many people. And I thank Kevin here. Kevin, your background still resonates, is very fresh in my memory on the journey and history of how Santa Clara stood tall. Here I see we're almost selling ourselves to private sector. I'll be honest here. It's part of a lawsuit, I get it. We are discussing this as an open zoning administration change, but feels like we are just limited because we want to settle out of court without a full understanding of what we are getting into. Tomorrow's technology, you don't know, I don't know. We don't know how big these are fuel cells today. It could be a SLAC tomorrow. You know what the SLAC Center is? The Center for Linear Accelerator, which is massive.
well, just to be clear, we are making fuel cells discretionary. Any other type of, we're making fuel cells ministerial. Any other type of power plant, we are instituting new renewables requirement. So if they want to put in a linear accelerator, they would have to meet the renewable requirements.
And I appreciate Bloom Energy trying to come to us with the option, but I don't see their option here. So while it's part of your, I agree, it's behind the, what you can declare as to what is the actual. But as far as requesting for the zoning amendment right now, without what their actual renewable, here's the other part which you mentioned, which caught me, is they don't have to just do it. They could purchase it. Money buys it all. They could purchase the offsets.
We do allow them to purchase offsets, that's correct.
Yeah, so money can buy yourself out, as it's just definitely showing right now.
Well, the hope is that those offsets, the quality of the offsets are such that it must reduce emissions in some way. It must compensate for the emissions that they're generating.
And there's a certification process with the offsets.
And Kevin, thank you again for being here. How equipped is our staff to actually be auditing the reports that come from this technology?
That is something we'll have to develop over the next couple of years as they start providing the reports. And we're not sure where that's going to go. Is that going to fall under Rena's group, or is that going to fall under SVP? We'll have to figure that out.
Okay. So truly, the analogy still holds.
Yeah, yes.
We all know it. I just said it out loud. Okay, so we all, and staff, you were bringing it here with all of those same thoughts process. Okay, we understand the goal for today, which is basically thou shall. So, Commissioner Biagini, and then Commissioner Salem.
I really appreciate my colleagues up here who have a deeper understanding of some of these complexities than I do. But hearing this, what occurs to me is a nagging fear that with technology racing at the pace it can, that we may have a problem with the cure becoming worse than the ill, or at least as bad as the ill. And so then my question becomes, and maybe I can't formulate it quick enough in my mind, because this isn't something I understand as deep as some of my colleagues. What can we do now to perhaps mitigate some of those fears? And I don't know if our hands are tied because of a lawsuit. I don't know if there's always a way somehow. And I don't know if anybody has any ideas, but I am all ears because I understand the concern. I thank my colleagues.
Staff, do you want to take a shot?
Sandra may be able to add to this, but I think whatever the settlement is, it's specific to 3 specific sites. Is that correct, Sandra? And then there's future stuff, but the initial is for three specific sites. So it's bracketed initially. Is that correct?
Well, there's very specific terms about the 3 pending applications.
Yeah.
But then it does also go on and say, and for any future applications, here's the terms that applies. So to be clear, anytime Bloom Energy comes in with a fuel cell in the future, it will be subject to this settlement agreement.
Oh, and that included the for future, ooh, ouch.
But keep in mind that that imposes the obligation on them to use renewables and or purchase offsets.
Thank you for adding that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Kevin, you were going to say something, sorry.
I was going to comment to the same thing Sandra was saying. He said the same thing.
Okay, we all acknowledge, eyes wide open, Commissioner Saleem.
Okay, one last question. I understand that the incremental effect of the power systems and the fuel cells may be understood. Is there a cap on the total aggregate number of fuel cells installable within the city? Because, each one may only have one sting, but if you're going to make a hive, that could be a problem.
There's nothing that would limit the number. I mean, I think just economics would factor in. But no, nothing in our proposed ordinance caps it.
I will make my closing comments if there are no other additional questions or comments. I would caution the city a lot. We are down a very, very slippery path where we are practically bound to change ordinances. We already have that by state. Now we have even private sector dictating what our ordinance should be and cannot be. And we, in this particular instance, which basically redeems any I would say, ability to monitor or preserve biological resources, our creeks, our water quality, our cultural resources, and I hope the federal is taking note, the tribal cultural resources. It is a significant impact that is not accounted for anywhere in the settlement and in this ordinance. So in an effort to say your zoning ordinance has no impact on CEQA, yes, but the action of the zoning ordinance has significant impact to the environment, which will be by result of projects coming through. Yes, you get a renewable energy, but you've lost all other, or I wouldn't say lost, that would be a strong word without knowing. You do not know the impact to the other resources outside of energy. Yes. So now we can, I don't know if there's any other to this, or is this a resolution that we make a motion?
Well, sorry, we need to go to the public, just in case there's anyone that wants to speak on this.
Okay, really? I'd like to see them. I would like to open the public hearing.
We do not have any hands raised in Zoom and nobody, oh, we do. We do. Please come on up and.
It's my first time. My name is Javier Perez, and my first time actually on a meeting like this. I'm excited, thrilled to see that a lot of intelligent people gathering in one place, and I will agree with the chair on what you mentioned about we probably being offer something that is gold on the outside, but we don't know what's inside. And as a citizen, I would have to agree with you and be cautious about it. So kudos to your thoughts in this regard. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members or comments? Commissioner Biagini?
Just a quick comment. I really like the cautionary tale that you talked about, and can we make sure that's reflected in the minutes so it gets to the city council? Okay, thank you.
Chair, and looking at staff here, do we have to vote on this recommendation or resolution, or shall we, or do we have the option of continuing it to another meeting and maybe thinking about it some more with maybe some additional information requests to staff and Xander? Go ahead, Xander.
We are on a very tight timeline. The terms of the settlement agreement require that this go to the city council very soon. So if you were to continue it, the settlement would be done. So if you're inclined to recommend disapproval, I would ask that you actually take that vote tonight. If you are inclined to, either way, we need to move quickly under the terms of the settlement.
Thanks for the clarity, Xander. Thank you.
So do we have a motion to recommend to city council?
Pardon me, Chair. First,
Sorry.
we need a motion to close public hearing.
You're right.
So moved.
That's exactly what I said.
Second.
The motion is to close public hearing. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Commissioner Biagini?
Yes.
Chair Kuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Slame?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have on the motion for tonight's hearing. Motion to recommend to City Council amending Section 18.60.050, applicable to certain zoning districts related to electric power plants and fuel cells. Is there a motion?
Okay, this is a case where I understand that this is not something that we, as the commission, really have a huge.
You could make the
way of-
motion, though, as to what you want City Council to hear.
I would like to make the motion that we approve it with the understanding that there are caveats that City Council should be made aware of, and a number of which being what you've stated explicitly in your comments. I don't know how to reiterate those. If you'd like to put them in a form that would be appropriate for the motion, I would be open to that as an amendment. So that's a sort of a motion.
Duly noted. Elizabeth, do you want the added language, or were you good with the?
Well, I'm going to defer to Xander on that. I would think we would need some specifics, but he can tell us.
Okay. Xander,
Well, right, we're in a more formal situation tonight because we're adopting an ordinance. An ordinance is specifying exactly what's going into the city code.
so there's
I would
nothing.
ask you make your recommendation of approval or denial for the ordinance only. Then you can make a second motion to also recommend specific items to the city council. But it should be, unless you're planning on changing the text of the ordinance tonight, I would suggest you have two motions.
No, I wouldn't make my motion to change the text. I would simply actually request that staff provide these explicit comments as part of the recommendation to City Council, so that they can be understood at the time that the motion, or that the item is brought to the City Council.
So the motion is to first recommend approval of the ordinance to City Council.
Yes.
So you're going to make two motions.
No, that'll be a second motion, separate motion. So the first motion is still,
Okay.
is there a second?
A second.
Okay.
So the motion is to approve staff recommendation 1. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Aye.
Commissioner Biagini?
Yes.
Chair Kuru?
No.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Salam?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes. Now for the second motion.
Why didn't you make it? You have the exact idea of how you.
Have the list.
Okay, it's now that it's passed, I make the motion for City Council to also include the evaluation of other environmental resources or impact to this amendment and ordinance change to confirm that staff will be able to truly validate and mitigate any impacts of the ordinance, including review of biological resources, greenhouse gas emissions, aesthetics, land use, cultural resources, hazards and hazardous materials, mineral resources, tribal cultural resources, air quality, geology, noise, and any impact to recreational and utility services, which basically becomes CEQA, but okay.
Glad you said it.
Yes, the best.
No, I will not be able to capture all that, but we will
think she got it.
definitely, no, yeah, we'll capture it in the minutes.
Yes.
You know,
Thank you, thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you,
So
Elizabeth.
we have a motion. I did not hear a second.
Second.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Commissioner Biagini?
A more enthusiastic yes.
Chair Kuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Salam?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Thank you, staff, for bringing a very, very complicated discussion and an actual change. This takes a lot of work, so truly applaud your patience, and thank you, Kevin, for being here again to help us understand better. We'll see how this all unfolds. Thank you for bringing this.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, moving to the next item on today's public hearing. We have the 6-month review of a use permit for the on-site sale and consumption of alcohol, ABC license type 47, and the addition of live entertainment to the use permit for an existing banquet facility located at 2670 El Camino Real, qualifying under the CEQA Class 1 Section Exemption 15301 under existing facilities. Staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have Steve Lee, our senior planner on this project, who's on Zoom, and will give you a brief presentation.
All right. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Planning Commission. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so yes, again, Steve Lee, project planner for this use permit. And this is a 6-month review of a use permit that was approved in August. You usually don't see this coming before you because 6 months review is typically at the staff level. And then we bring 12 months review back to the Planning Commission. That will be the last one. But this 6-month review, staff received many complaints over the 6 months. And we want to bring that to your attentions. Also, we want to add additional conditions to the use permit to mitigate those disturbances, as well as identifying that there's the resolutions that was approved in the past missed the live entertainment. So we want to include that because the applicant is also in pending entertainment permit with the police. So with that, let me go through the site here. So if you're familiar with the site, this is at the Moonlight Shopping Center. It is in the general plan regional mixed use and has a zoning designation as a community commercial. Is a 14.3 acre parcel at the Moonlight Shopping Center and is a existing elite event center in a 10,300 square feet space here where the Star is. The use permit is for the service of alcoholic beverages and under the ABC type 47 in conjunction with the live entertainments. We have amplified music and occasions performers. So the max capacity for this site is 370 indoor seats. There are no outdoor seats, and the hours of operations is from Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then for Friday to Sunday is 8 a.m. to midnight. So with the 6 months, we received 14 complaints. It's received by the code enforcement, and then for the police departments, we receive 3 service calls in the premise of loud music, unruly guests, and crowds congregating both in the storefront and the rear alley in the back. So right now, the entertainment permit is pending with the police departments for the planning commissions to approve this updated resolution. And then we also check at the 6 month whether all of these disturbances has to do with alcoholic activities or alcoholic use. And right now, they don't. The applicant do not have an active ABC license with the California ABC department, and we could not confirm whether they're serving the alcohol at this time. So we do want to add conditions on that. So in the case that they are serving it, they do need to obtain the ABC license first. And then the advertisements on their website, there's this other website that they're advertising for 400 maximum capacity, where they were only approved for 370. So again, live entertainment is going to be added to the updated resolutions along with the following conditions. I'll show you in the next slides. So we have 7 additional conditions based on some of the disturbances that we've received. First one is reducing the hours for the weekends, Friday to Sunday. We'll reduce from the 8 a.m. to midnight to just 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Second conditions added is the minimum of 2 private security personnel shall be required to be on site for any events that has alcoholic beverages. And then the third condition, patrons shall not be allowed to loiter in the store frontage and rear alley. Fourth conditions is the exterior doors, both the front and the rear, shall remain closed during an event. The fifth conditions regarding alcoholic beverages shall not be allowed without first obtaining the ABC license, as well as the live entertainment. That won't be allowed until you obtain the license from the police department. Last condition added is regarding the maximum level guests. We want to be explicit that is no more than 370. These conditions were sent to the applicant via email as well as a mail. And we have not received any responses from the applicant regarding this. The applicant that is seeking for that entertainment license contacted me just today, and I sent over the link and also the conditions, but I have not heard a response whether they agree to these conditions or not. But we choose to move forward with this recommended conditions. And for this 6 month and the updated resolutions and conditions, staff recommends Planning Commission consider approving the use permit, and then we'll continue to monitor this for the next 6 months, so we can come back with the Planning Commissions for the 12-month review. So again, we haven't had any contact or any responses from the applicant, but there was a gentleman that spoke earlier from the public who wears Elite Event Center, and I'm not sure if he wants to talk, but that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Steve. Wait. Any questions of staff from members of commission?
Yes, Chair.
Commissioner Brettinger?
Thank you. Just a quick question here, Steve. So I noted that there has not been any confirmation that the facility is providing the alcohol at this time, and the disturbances are occurring outside of the premises, right? So now that any establishment might be subject to that, right? The patrons use the property, use the premises, go outside. I'm trying to protect the applicant from the perception that they are causing the disturbance. Would you comment, please, what your take is on that one?
I want to clarify, you're asking to see if the activities is causes by the tenant or the use?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm saying that the applicant is holding his part of the bargain.
Mm-hmm.
The patrons are doing something outside. So is that the applicant's fault, so to say?
Okay. Yeah. So let's clarify. So the use permit is really for alcoholic beverages and live entertainment. And these disturbance, well, all of these uses usually is supposed to be within the enclosed building. When these activities are, spilling outside of the tenant space, either loud music, loitering, we have in the past, we haven't really put conditions specific to no loitering or doors closed so that it reduces noise. Because of these complaints, we're seeing these as appropriate conditions to add to reduce those. And so they're not violating anything now, yes, but these are additional conditions that will help the neighbors in the rear.
Okay, I'll ask a quick follow-up question. So 14 complaints in the past 6 months, 18 months?
6 months.
6 months. And is that unusual? For an equivalent property elsewhere in the city, we have none in 6 months. Is that unusual from your understanding?
From my experience, when you have complaints, usually that's something we report in the 6 months. We don't usually do the 6 months reporting to you. So based on just that pattern, this is unusual.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I can say that, yes, this is unusual for code enforcement staff to have this many calls at a facility like this.
Thank you.
Additional clear.
Thank you. No more questions, Chair. Thanks.
Commissioner Huang?
Yeah, question is for the private security guard. Where are they, should placed inside the building or outside the building? What's the purpose?
We don't have any specifics on that. That's just to make sure it helps with any disturbances, either loitering outside or any noise to reduce. It's just having security there to mitigate some of those issues. We don't have any specific on where they should be, what they should be monitoring.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Biagini?
Just Steve, just so that I can be clearer on this, the 14 complaints that came in, that's 14 separate incidents as opposed to 2 incidences, one had 10 and one had 4. It's different?
Correct. Yes, they are
different? Okay, it's not the same person calling all the time about the same. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to staff? Okay, with no questions from any other members, we'll open for public hearing. Public comments?
You go to the applicant first.
I'm sorry.
I believe this is the applicant in the audience, but I don't know.
Okay, we'll open for the applicant.
Hi, again, my name is Javier Perez. Debbie, the property manager, was supposed to be here, but she couldn't make it, so I'm here. So a little bit history about Elite Event Center. The place opened up about 3.5 years ago. When the place opened up, there was no apartments in the back of the event center. It was flat land. And then through these 3.5 years, there is a bunch of housing and apartments that they are there now. I'm surprised to hear, like there's been this many complaints about the noise. The first time that I heard about it, a couple of the customers that rent out the place, they have different events. And the last event that I think it was a little bit of, like a big thing, a complaint was that they were celebrating like a cultural event, and they used the back part of the event center, not the front. That was, they did not inform that they were going to have that celebration. And because having the apartments in the back, I understand people complaining about it, because of the noise. But I think like what he mentioned, the last 6 months is because those apartments are new there. And the measurements that we took as far as that goes to have zero noise is that not to dispose of the trash later in the evening. That's mostly like the main issue that had happened in the past, that when people are sleeping 11, 12 in the midnight, the party end, then the cleaners, they go to the back door, start throwing all the trash from the event. And as we all know, you can be at midnight sleeping really good. When you hear something, you wake up, even if it's just no other than throwing trash. And we understand that that was an issue. So now, 8 o'clock, nobody exits the back door. Those doors remain closed, so the neighbors in the back, they're not being disturbed by cleaners or by any other noise that the event center may produce. As far as like people gathering in the front, we also been telling the security guards, there's usually between 4 to 5 security guards on site. Every time that there is an event, we mandate the people that book the place for their events to make sure that they bring the security, and we validate that there is security at any event at all given times during the event. There is normally 2 or 3 security guards outside, and then a couple inside, making sure that everybody behaves. One thing that I do like to mention, every now and then you get unruly people that they have personal issues, and every now and then they, on the 3.5 years time that I've been working with Elite, there's probably, as far as I know, like 2 or 3 incidents in that 3.5 year times. That's what it's kind of shocking to see, that many people complain. So I would not know that how did that happen, because there hasn't been incidents that makes sense to that amount of complaints. The place was closed for like about 1.5 years during COVID time. And basically, through that time, there was like, there's still a lot of obligations that happened through that time. And now that COVID is behind us, it's time to kind of make up a little bit of what it was invested. And, but of course, again, I'm surprised to hear that. The measurements that we took, it was just that, no closing the back doors. So the neighbors living behind, they don't hear that later noise in the evening. But I understand, because sometimes where I live, I also hear like when people get off their cars, if they're loud speaking, you can hear, and I'll talk to everybody involved, Debbie and everybody else with the Elite Event Center about what I hear, and make sure that everything that is outlined it gets followed. So there is no issues. We just welcome a church that is now home in Elite, Church of Who, They having events every Sunday, church service, and they also have other events on a regular basis. So the place is safe. We have donated the space to the city of Santa Clara for events that I think at least a couple times for the fire department and the police department whenever they need the facility. During COVID time, the event center was offered to the city for any beds. They said at this moment we're not in need of anything, but if we happen to need, we'll reach out. So be part of the community. I think we bring a safe place to the residents of the city of Santa Clara to celebrate their different types of events that they have coming up. A lot of graduations in May. We're getting a lot of phone calls, people that want to celebrate their students graduating and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say in regards of the Elite Event Center. I take note of everything that I hear, and I make sure that we act on everything that is mentioned there, so we don't have to be here again, you know, and we put this behind. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that Elite Event Center is a part of the community and is trying to bring a safe place for families to celebrate their events.
Commissioner Biagini?
Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to...
Oh, wait, I have a question for you. For you, sir. That's okay. So one thing struck me when you were talking about, you know, I understand you want to close the back door so people don't go out in the back alley and create the kind of situation that you're trying to avoid. But what occurred to me was, can they still use that as an exit? For example, if there is a fire or something, we got to have more than one exit for people to get out of. So explain to me what you mean when you say close the back door. It's not barred or bolted, is it?
Yeah, no, I meant for the cleaners. So what was happening was that when an event end, the cleaning people clean and they dispose of the trash. With the garbage can is in the back area. So when they dispose of that trash for the event, they open the back door and they throw in the bags into the bin, and that loud sound is what disturbs the neighbors.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that there were exits.
Yeah, there is two in the back and there is two in the front.
All right.
Yeah, it's not affecting the emergency exits. It's just more to prevent noise and from preventing noise. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Biagini. Commissioner Salem, any questions? So I have a couple questions. Thank you for being here. I understand staff was trying to communicate with you the conditions of approval that have been, you probably saw it. Are you acknowledging those conditions are okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, everything that makes everything better, we agree, definitely, yes.
Okay. And I do all sorts of research when I have a topic. I did look up your reviews. As a business in Santa Clara, you are a valued partner in our community. Your reviews are not that great.
Yeah, we got the one event that we mentioned.
Well, there are many.
What was that?
There are many comments.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, from the same event, yeah, but yeah.
Please take a look at how you can better support the community. With I think there's good value in listening to those comments and reviews and feedback. Of course, not all of them are true. But to the neighbors, and I think it must, if 14 complaints is very unusual for a business to hear. I've been in this business long enough.
I agree, yeah.
Then there is a big red flag. And that red flag also reflects that you don't have an ABC license yet, but we're serving alcohol.
No, we're not selling alcohol.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, the business of the Elite Event Center.
Steve said we couldn't confirm whether or not they were, but they had no valid license.
We will hope that you're not selling because you don't have an ABC license. Today is your ability to seek that permit to get your ABC license and your live entertainment. Now, you didn't have a live entertainment permission before, did you?
No, but we don't have the person that we reach out to help setting up and getting everything together. We made a mistake to go with someone that wasn't experienced, but we didn't even apply for live entertainment because we don't do live entertainment.
Okay.
The place is just like, we don't do live entertainment. So, but the person that filled the paperwork put that in, but we just don't do that. It's just a place, like I said, it's a church, it's a birthday party. We don't do that type of events.
So when you ask for live entertainment, describe to me what kind of events you will have, what is that kind of events?
No, we did not request to have live entertainment. The person that filled out the paperwork for us, check that box.
Check that box, so you don't need a live entertainment.
No, we don't have live
Okay,
entertainment.
staff,
Yeah.
note that they're not requesting live entertainment permit, so
No.
we will make that an actual.
Yeah, and that's what I'm surprised to hear all these things over there, because like half of them are in my mind are not accurate.
Okay.
Good to know. So that's a delete number 6, right?
If I may, there's obviously a conflict here because we do have a pending applications with the police department for entertainment permit. That's just what we're basing on.
Yeah, I get it, but like I mentioned before, the person that we asked to help us to fill up the paperwork, just check the box. We can ask her to redo and just not check that box because we don't have live entertainment.
Okay.
The only live entertainment is the priest on Sundays that speaks to the
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I envision live entertainment, it is like having a music concert.
No.
Or an actual
Dance party.
No.
a permitted dance or something that you sell tickets for.
No.
Like the convention center does,
Yes.
for instance. Okay, so staff, we can take the applicant's word today.
Actually, I'm sorry, one more clarification on the entertainment, because entertainments and dancing is what's required a use permit in the code for community commercial. And so they host wedding on their websites, and weddings
Have dances.
This is an assumption, but there's dancing, and Xander can probably elaborate more on how we define entertainment. But the activities is in the part of the use now.
Okay.
And that's why we're adding it as a use permit.
And that's a great distinction because I am familiar with wedding and concert type event permit or venues. Xander or whoever staff, in our ordinance, what is an event considered to be?
Yeah. And if I may say one last thing is, like we ourselves don't do none of that. It's just like if you're gonna have a ceremony, your kid is graduating out of college, and you said, "Oh, can I have my party here?" You said, "Sure." How many people? And that's all we do. But we ourselves are not
Conducting
are
the
not.
actual-
We're
okay.
not doing none of that. It's just
Okay.
like a customer needs a place to have a party. We have the hall, and that's how it happens.
Okay.
But we're not
I
doing it.
understand the confusion here. So to Elite, to Javier, the clarification here is, yes, you have an open venue, but if the venue, the event actually entails music or loud noise of any sort, any kind of a paid event by any party who's renting the venue from you, your venue as a land use is subject to the use permit, and that's where staff is bringing that they are going to have live entertainment here. So while you, I think as an individual, as the owner of the premise, are not bringing in your own DJs, the person you rented the space to, can they bring DJs?
They bring their people to play music. Not everybody, but some people do bring, depending on what type of event
Yeah.
they
Yes.
they are hosting.
Understood.
Yeah.
Do you serve food?
We have a kitchen, we do, but we also allow the customers to bring their own food.
Okay.
If they prefer to bring
You
their.
have like a rental facility that
Yeah.
they can have. So staff, to then confirm, Steve, you may be on the right track. Does this truly fall under only live entertainment, or is there any other definition in the zoning ordinance?
Well, the ordinance doesn't find or specify who brings the entertainment. It's just the use at the site.
What's the
So as long
use
as
classification?
The dancing or live entertainment.
Dance or live entertainment. Okay, so the permit's still relevant for purposes of discussion today. So thank
And,
you.
And Madam Chair, I apologize for the delay. I finally dug up the definition. So entertainment does include any form of live music, live vocal, karaoke machine, or instrumental sound performed by one or more persons or disc jockey. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you are accurate in believing that there is an opportunity here for a likelihood for entertainment to occur.
Okay, great clarification, thank you. Thank you again for being here and for seeking the approvals. You have technically not gotten a live entertainment, but you were hosting, so you are here through code enforcement. And we hope through the conditions of approval and with the actual sound buffering that you have done, thank you again for being proactive about it. I would add one additional condition if you and staff and commission are amicable, is to keep the decibel of noise to the levels of city noise ordinance.
Madam Chair, I'd say that's already required under our current
so
zoning
we do
code, but
have a
if you
DB,
want to
right?
call it out so it's very specific for them,
Okay.
I'll let the assistant city attorney chime in if he
Xander?
wants, but I don't think there's any problem
You can-
reiterating.
You can add that. I mean, of course, they're already required to comply with
they
the
won't know.
code, but this provides a more explicit
Correct.
caution that if they violate that section of the code, their permit's going to be revoked.
Correct.
So certainly we can add that as a condition if that's the commission's pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, only because the noise traction is a way, again, for neighbors to know that there is a checks and balance. And for you to allow us to give you this permit, you know that there is a noise threshold beyond which if you do violate and a code enforcement issue is brought, your use permit could be revoked just based on that.
Yeah, again, the noise complaints are because of the trash being thrown in the back.
Okay.
And this is because of the new construction. 3.5 years there. No, the last 6
There's
months
no-
complaints
if you,
is.
If you speak in a forest, is
yeah.
it still sound?
Yeah, and I understand that developments have to happen, sort of what earlier was discussed with the energy. The city grows and things grow, and we just didn't foresee that. It was an empty land when we got the place. The development happens so fast, and now we having this issue that we did not have for 3 years. And again, it's just the dispose of the trash because there is no complaints on the loud noise. It's throwing the trash in the back, but we already control that. We waited until the next day in the morning to get rid of that trash, so there is no issues with that.
Okay, thank you again for being here. Any other questions to applicant? Okay, we are going to close public hearing, and at some point I'm going to master it, right?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Javier.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bhatnagar, close the
Yes.
public hearing. Thank you. Commissioner Biagini,
Yes?
Chair Kuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Selene.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion items on the topic before we go to a motion? Commissioner Salim?
Yep.
Thank you.
So it seems like someone from staff or within the city legal needs to have a conversation with the applicant's owner or signature authority directly to explain what is and isn't required for their permits, because even I was a little confused. This is a dilemma between supplying a space and providing entertainment versus supplying a space that includes the ability to house entertainment. I understand from what I heard now is that even if your event includes dancing, you apparently need to have a permit for dancing. So they're going to need to review what permits they're required to have and get them in process for this to be a valid venue. The other thing is they may need to increase their sound deadening on the back walls or any part of the facility that is leading directly to adjacent residential, so that their noise does not bleed over even from the normal events themselves. I know that's a challenge, but it's kind of a part of being a good neighbor in this case. And unfortunately, developments do happen. So, you could have an amusement park, and if houses grow up around you, you're going to have an issue. In this case, you have an event center, and now there's homes nearby. You're going to have to adjust your sound management process. But I'm actually in favor of extending to the 1 year and allow them an opportunity to correct the issues, because it is a valid concern that as things change around you, you have to change, and it doesn't always happen immediately. So 6 months is a very short amount of time since the permits were reviewed and issued. That's all. Thank you.
I see the applicant would like to make a statement. Xander, is that okay?
Not really.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
One last comment. So the where the events happen is in the front, and the residents are in the back. So there is about this length between where the event happens, because the kitchen. So here is the event, the place where people gather, and then there is a space like this large, and there is multiple walls because that's a full kitchen. So the only noise, again, that there is and there was occurring was when people go and dump the trash bags on the bins. But I do understand that when it's midnight, there is no sound outside. You throw a stone and it's gonna make a noise. So I get it, because like I said, where I live, sometimes people get off their cars at midnight just speaking, and I can hear them clearly. So I can imagine people waking up at the sound of a trash can being thrown in the bin. So, but there is no like, it's a long distance between where the people gather and the apartments. Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, motion to consider the recommendation.
Okay. We have the motion from Bhatnagar. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes. I would like to just add the additional clarification on the noise decibels in the existing conditions of approval, if that's okay with the maker of the motion.
Accepted.
We have a motion and a second?
Yeah. Second.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And Madam Chair, may I ask for clarification on that additional condition? Is it something to the effect of the applicant shall ensure that the facility complies with the noise limitations set forth in Chapter 9.10 of the City Code at all times?
Yes, and specify the
Say what
decibels
it
that
is.
it is, so that it's clear. 80 decibels, 45.
Say what it is.
There is a decibel level. I think it's 80. I could be off. I'm going off of my very, very, very primitive knowledge of it.
We will be sure to include the specific number of decibels.
Thank you.
In the condition.
Thank you, Zander. Okay, we're ready
All
for the
right.
motion.
Commissioner Bhatnagar,
Yes.
Commissioner Biagini,
Yes?
Chair Kuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Salame.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Thank you, applicant. And Try telling that to a mother who just put her 2-month-old baby to sleep when she hears that loud noise making the baby up. Okay. All right, moving to the next order of the item. Today, we have reports of commission, board liaison and committee, announcements, other items. Any announcements by staff or commission members? Staff?
Yeah, I guess this is a good time.
Okay.
So we have coming to the commission this summer the updated zoning ordinance. Yeah.
I was just going to say, not in my term, at least in his term.
And previously in discussions with the Planning Commission, you all had thought that maybe you would want 2 Planning Commission meetings for this ordinance adoption. And I just would like to confirm that you still desire to have 2 meetings for this.
If you need us and our feedback to help do a better ordinance, by
2
all
meetings.
means. Yes. Hopefully we have another commission member who will fill the term as well.
Great. Thank you. That's very helpful. That is all I have.
Okay, great announcement. Thank you. Commissioner Travel and Training Reports, request to attend. Your hand is just there. Sorry.
So I would help to, it would help if someone could explain why our special meeting was canceled, because we had a quorum.
That is correct. So we are trying to bring back to the commission an amended housing element to address some comments from the state. And we thought we were prepared to do it at that time, but we were not quite prepared to get it to you. So we will now go on the normal meeting in May.
So I'm somewhat still concerned, though, that we are in a pattern of urgency hostages, in the sense that our meetings are literally at the last second, and there's really no opportunity to course correct or do any kind of review that has a meaningful change for the future. Can we expect that this is a pattern now, or are we going to move to have a little bit more gap between reviewing the topic and having an opportunity to make possible improvements before it's required to immediately go to commission or to council for approval? That's more of a feedback than it is a question.
Yes.
Hopefully we can start to plan in a little bit more proactive opportunity to review these and actually make comments on them before they're required. I was kind of blindsided a little bit about the electric power generation ordinance. That's another good example of like, well, we couldn't even think about it or talk about it because it's needed now. It's a trend that we're dangerously locked into, I think, at this point. So that's a comment. Thank you.
I think that you've made your position very clear, and we have received that and understand. For the electric ordinance, we are under the gun of a lawsuit. For the housing element, we are under the gun of the state. But for the zoning ordinance, there's no pressure. Our zoning ordinance was adopted in the 60s, so another month's not going to matter.
The only pressure is it's older by the day.
I'm not getting any younger. Yeah.
So, you take the time you need with that beast. Because, in response to the chair's comment earlier, we definitely value your input on that. So you don't need to rush.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Salim. Any other thoughts, comments before we go to the travel training reports? I just saw, thank you again, I got a copy, just cause, I guess. NPC 23, which is National Planning Conference, is online, April 26th to 28th. Again, I am jaded with all the online conferences, like Commissioner Salim is. So we will wait for in-person, but there's an announcement. Any other travel training? Elizabeth, you want to bring? Okay. We shall move to the next order of items. Director of Community Development Reports, Planning Commission budget update.
Actually, you do not have any additional expenditures since the last report, so your balance is still at $5,993.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any upcoming agenda items other than?
Here I go again. Sorry. Is there any progress or update on the effort to get us access to Zoom accounts?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but yes, we did do that quite a while ago and notified all commissioners, so I'll resend it to you.
Thank you. I apparently
it's okay.
completely lost track of it.
That's all right.
'Cause I needed it last weekend. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to just focus on Commissioner Salim. Yeah, you've been in my way all along.
We'll have a direct conference going. Thank you. It's my fault for not keeping track of it.
Good one, thank you. Any upcoming agenda items?
As previously mentioned, you will have an amendment to our housing element coming to you in May.
May 24th?
May 24th, that would be correct.
Commissioner Salim, any questions? Okay. City Council actions?
At their April 4th meeting, the city council did approve a tentative map for the 3575 De La Cruz Boulevard for the 15 condominiums for Habitat for Humanity, which the Planning Commission also recommended approval for.
Nice. Do we know when the Benton Lawrence project will come to Planning Commission? Or will it?
Benton and Lawrence, that is going to go to city council to pose the question to them if the city would like to participate in the application. So it's not even a formal application to the city at this time. It's just asking the city whether or not they want to participate as an agency.
There's a special meeting coming up.
It is for that, yeah, correct, for that item. I'm sorry, I don't have exactly what day that is, but it is a special meeting of the council.
Okay. Okay, any other? Are you going to give us the answer, Leslie, or just?
Oh,
you?
no, that's
okay,
it.
okay.
I'll look it up and tell you
All
after.
right, seeing no other comments, thoughts for the evening, thank you to the members who stayed here. We are officially adjourned at 7:50. Thank you, Xander.
Thank you.
I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you, Xander.